Hey guys, it's Paul, combat veteran, MMA fighter, YouTuber, and today I wanted to do a quick breakdown of the thing that is blowing up in MMA news, right? Last night's Ben Askren versus Jake Paul fight. Now, what I've seen a lot of fighters reacting to it, right? I certainly have some strong feelings as a former MMA fighter. I like Ben Askren. He's a really good guy, but I haven't seen any technical breakdowns yet. So let's try to do this fight breakdown now. Okay, so we're going to jump ahead here. Definitely, of course, be sure to hit subscribe on the channel for more content like this. Hit like on the video to tell YouTube that I am putting out quality content here, that I'm not some clickbaiter. And check out my links below to my Instagram, my second channel, and my store. Okay.
Wow. Gentlemen, buckle your seatbelts. Here we go.
About to go.
Okay, so let's start with some of the stats about this fight. First off, Ben Askren, Jake Paul. Jake Paul is 6'2", 200 pounds. He looks like he cut some weight for this fight. And, of course, weight cutting, for those of you that don't know, is the process of dieting and regulating your food intake and even sometimes sitting in the sauna and sweating it out in order to hit that weight mark that you have to hit for your fight. Now, Ben Askren, as we know in his MMA career, was largely a 170-pound fighter, and he was pretty soft looking for 170, right? He didn't want to cut weight. He was trying to make the U.S. He was trying to be both an Olympic-level wrestler and an MMA fighter, which is a tall order. So, Ben Askren historically has never cut a ton of weight, and so for this, walking into the fight, right, which you typically see in boxing and MMA matches, is fighters who weigh in, they will rehydrate, they will eat, sometimes for the first time in a day or two, and they will gain a lot of weight back. So I would predict, based on my fights, that Jake Paul right now is probably about 225, 230 in the ring. Ben Askren, in contrast, probably looks like he had to eat his way up to the scale, right? Tried to gain weight just to make sure he's sort of comparable to Jake Paul in muscle. Or in at least size. So Ben Askren, I would say, is probably about 198 at most. Though I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments if Ben Askren actually weighed in under the weight limit. So let's assume, I would assume, I think it's fair to say, there's probably about a 30-pound difference between these two fighters right now. Right? And here's the thing. Size and power confer advantages that you just can't compensate for, right? So at 200 pounds, Jake Paul is going to be throwing punches harder than many of the fighters that Ben Askren has already fought, right? He's probably maybe throwing as hard as someone I imagine like Robbie Lawler. Now the technique, obviously Robbie Lawler is a vet, technique's going to be different, but in terms of just the physics, right, of muscle mass times speed, that fist is going to be moving like it's going to be moving like a freight train, right? A big human being is throwing a punch is a dangerous thing, no matter how trained or untrained you are.
So go down. Waste no time and get to it and do it.
Here we go.
You ain't got time to fill out nothing. You ain't filling out no applications. Ain't nobody.
Okay, so you see Jake Paul, he's got one hand up by his chin, his other hand is down. That is a very boxing-oriented style. He's got his shoulders turned really heavily. This is something that you see usually in much more experienced boxers, right? Because you have to think, in boxing, you have your weapons are your left hand and your right hand. You don't have anything else, and you got to keep your opponent on their toes. Are you throwing a double jab? Are you throwing a jab cross hook, right? Jab, cross. These are all sequences you put together sort of to confuse your opponent, right? If every single punch is a jab, your opponent's going to figure it out and they're going to counter it. Or if every combo is a jab cross, your opponent's going to figure it out. And so when you turn one shoulder, right, if you're very good, you can use that to kind of roll your way into punches. But for most, even mid-level fighters, having one shoulder forward and one shoulder back, I mean, look, if I'm trying to punch the camera, I can't even reach it with my power hand, and I can reach all the way in with my lead hand, which is a problem, right? Because now Ben Askren may know that there's the the lead hand's going to be coming first, and the trail hand's going to be covering a lot of distance. In contrast, Ben Askren is standing in a Thai style, right? And this is common for Thai kickboxing. He's square, his hands are up, palms out, and this is because in Muay Thai, the gloves are smaller, and you have to rely more on your forearms to protect your head. So, again, interesting stylistic choices by these two guys.
Fighting hard, so we ain't filling out no applications today. This is not a fill out.
Ben got that Vince Vaughn body.
He has a body.
Okay, so that was good. So what we saw there is Jake Paul went for a hook, and Ben Askren threw his own hook over top and connected with Jake Paul. So this is good. It's called counter striking, which is when you throw your strikes after someone else. Throw your strikes in response to someone else.
Oh, with a nice overhead right.
A nice overhead right.
Ben Askren's built like a bag of milk, but he's got that country strength.
Well, Freddie Roach did say that.
Yeah, this commentary, man, I kind of want to tune it out. These guys are bag of milk, got that country strength. Like, there is some technical analysis to be done here.
Ben Askren does have deceptive power. The Hall of Fame trainer himself, he did say that Ben Askren, if he fights the right fight, can defeat Jake Paul.
Freddie Roach was complimentary of his work ethic and the fact that he...
Okay, so I have a real problem with this. You can see Ben Askren just put this jab out there and then proceeded to walk down Jake Paul. Now, I can't begin to tell you how poor technique it is to leave a punch sticking out there. Now, what's really common is to use your jab to, and again, I'm a southpaw, so if you're like confused as to why I'm sticking my right hand out as a jab, that's why. But when you're a southpaw or when you're doing your jab, you use it early in a fight often to feel out distance, to get a sense of, okay, here's where my opponent is, here's where they are close enough to hit me, right? How close do I need to get to hit them, and can they hit me, right? It's called getting a sense of distance, and no amount of training will substitute for getting in the ring with your opponent and gauging how close you have to be for real to hit them. But what Ben Askren does is he sticks his jab out and then he walks behind it, right? The idea is that you're popping a jab out there just to get a sense, right? You don't need to put a ton of power behind it. You don't need to commit to it, but you bring it back because every second it's out there, it's not protecting your face. This is really fundamental boxing stuff. And you can see Jake Paul backpedaled far away, right? He was worried that Askren was going to come over top with a cross. Yeah, and finally Jake decided to stop backing away, plant and turn and throw his own counter strike, which again, Ben Askren looks like he's kind of just eating.
Did everything he asked, and you know what already? Ben Askren's on the inside.
He's trying to wrestle already.
Yeah, he's trying to get inside. He's strong.
Okay, so you can see in boxing, right, clinching is pretty frowned upon, and refs will break it up and sometimes penalize fighters for it. Jake Paul's last fight, there was so much clinching by his opponent, it was pretty ridiculous. I'm really shocked that the ref didn't penalize it. So that's why you saw Askren hit to the body and then put his arms out to tell the ref, hey, I'm not the one clinching here. Right, so, and I think this is probably Askren's strategy, right? He knows as an experienced fighter that Jake Paul is going to have his adrenaline going. This is his biggest fight. This is his most challenging fight. And so Jake Paul's going to be really nervous, and that adrenaline rush is going to make him dangerous, right? Because every punch, Jake Paul, he's nervous, and he wants to throw a ton of power into every punch. And because of his adrenaline, Jake Paul may not feel it as his body is worked. And what he'll notice is after a round or 2 rounds of being very tense, going very hard, and having his breathing disrupted, he's going to realize that he's become exhausted. And for Ben Askren, he is going to take that time as the more experienced competitor and in the late rounds be the one to break it down. I'm almost certain that's Ben Askren's strategy, also because big guys have a lot of, size. And the more tissue you have, fat and muscle, the more oxygen you need, the harder your heart has to work, the harder your lungs have to work, the faster that you're going to run out of gas, so to speak. So I'm almost certain this is Ben Askren's strategy. But the problem is you have to survive having a dude with a lot of adrenaline, with a lot of muscle swinging at you. And so you've got to stay defensive. Your hands have to be in front of your face to protect you.
That's what he needs to do to be victorious. He needs to fight him like a wrestler, get inside, muscle him out, tire him down.
And control the fight.
And control the fight.
Okay, that's the most insightful commentary we've heard so far. But it's
I
correct.
hope they start kissing. You think they'll start kissing? That's what I'm here for.
Okay, so this sort of pawing motion is, again, fundamentally unsound jab technique. And it's crazy. I'm seeing Jake Paul be the more technical fighter here. And I just struggle to understand why and how someone like Ben Askren can fight so poorly, so cavalierly against someone who, again, no matter how inexperienced you are, you still have muscle, and a human being throwing their fist as hard as possible at you is still dangerous.
Okay.
What Jake Paul did predict before 2 rounds are done, he's going to put away Ben Askren.
You see, Jake Paul is fundamentally sound boxing. You see how he put his jab out, brought it back to help gauge. He said, okay, Ben's still too far away. He's too far away. I need to get a little closer. But it always came back.
Fight like a 1940s fighter with that old ass style.
Yeah.
He going to change that style up. That's that,
okay. Come on,
old
Ben.
ass.
Okay, Jake Paul just hit Ben to the body. Again, a good shot. A good shot. Jake Paul is and you notice he had his hand up as he threw that body shot, keeping his other side of his face safe, right? If you do it right, and Jake Paul's dropping his hand a little bit, but this is common among young fighters. You want to have that shoulder up and in to kind of see how you can protect your own jaw and chin by sort of tucking your shoulder into it as you throw that hook, right? Again, you're just seeing Jake Paul be the more dynamic fighter here.
Jake Paul being a lot more disciplined than I thought.
Yeah, that's the style
Jake.
that fighters used to use in the 1930s. He's about to change that shit up.
Oh, there's a left hook on the top of the head.
Okay, see what Snoop Dogg is talking about. He actually makes kind of a good point, is that in the 30s, when boxers used lighter gloves, they couldn't rely on the gloves in front of their face to protect them. And so what they would do is they would fight with one hand very far in front. And the idea that it was almost like blocking an opponent, right? This is kind of how bare knuckle fights would often go. And they would have one hand closer to their face to catch and parry and block blows, right? They could even probably open it up or put their forearm up to catch a blow. And they had this hand in front to check them, to manage the distance, right? But in modern boxing, because there's far more hand protection, far more gloves, you bring them closer to your face and you protect yourself, right? And this is what you usually see, again, among more experienced boxers. I have real problems with Jake Paul doing this shoulder roll thing. He needs to stand square. He's not at a point where he can shoulder roll his way out of this.
By Paul.
Oh, shit.
Right, this is something that the classic is Floyd Mayweather doing this shoulder roll thing. But remember, Floyd Mayweather's father was a professional boxer and had trained him to fight with this unconventional style since he was a child, right? And that's why he was able to master it. Very few other boxers really can master it like that. And certainly not someone with 3 fights and another career as a YouTuber.
Top to the
Body
body.
shot to them ribs. Bang! Right to the motherfucking
Dude,
head.
he's a fucking bad boy, dude.
He is. Jake, get down. I try
Jake's
to tell
a
you.
bad
You think
boy.
I'm going to put...
Okay, again, Jake's hands keep dropping as he walks back. This is a technical problem. You see Askren keeping his hand by his chin. That's a good call. But yeah, Jake Paul is he's not leaving that jab out there. He's putting the jab out and bringing it back, right? He respects the fundamentals of boxing in a way that Ben Askren just doesn't seem to.
Put $2 million on a motherfucking goofball? What the fuck?
Jake Paul's
Okay, again, Askren tried to check him with that hook, catch him coming in. I think that's another part of Askren's strategy is to catch Jake Paul swinging wildly as he comes in and hit him with these nice tight hooks. But again, and I know how this ends, but Askren's he's gotta protect his head while he does this. You've got to be buttoned up while you throw your counters.
Guard with former world champion Jean Pascal and
Get my
also
money,
cruiserweight
Jake. Get
contender.
my motherfucking money, Jake. Get my motherfucking money.
Yeah, this is fundamental boxing, right? You see Jake hit him with the lead and the cross, just a 1-2, right? He was a little over the top with that cross coming over Ben Askren's defense because his hands were so low. If his hands were up where they're supposed to be, if you respect your opponent, you don't have to respect your opponent's technique, but you have to respect their power. And you got to keep your hands up, right? Because that's why Jake Paul is able to throw that hand right over top. When your defenses are down here and your opponent goes up over them, right? And you saw it caught him exactly in the temple. Askren could have solved this with the thing that he learned in his second boxing class. Hands up, right? And especially against someone like Jake Paul, especially when you want to counter hook and you're the shorter guy, your hands have to be tall. You've got to fight them here. But, I think Askren just believed that he could be a better boxer without using better boxing technique. But that's not how it is, right? You can't. You're never going to be so good that you're better than technique.
Jay, get my motherfucking money, Jay. Get my motherfucking.
There's nothing worse than him being like, chink, like, yeah, I'm a, like, okay, dude, sure.
Money, Jay. Get me my motherfucking money, Jay. Finish him.
Yo, this dude
Finish him. Finish him. Finish
Stop yelling, finish him. This is silly.
him. Finish him. What a finish him.
Okay, so this is another controversial moment. Why did that ref call that fight off? Here's why. Is because when in boxing, right, you have this really dangerous event where a fighter gets hit so hard that they are knocked to the canvas, that their balance is completely wiped out. And what this is an MTBI, a minor TBI, the same injuries that IEDs cause to soldiers. And what's dangerous, both when it happens to soldiers, which I've had soldiers get MTBIs from IEDs, and of course I have definitely been hit hard enough that I got. I don't know if I have been hit hard enough in training that I've been dropped, and I've been hit hard enough in fights that I start to lose memory, but. What the ref is checking for is something really important. Very serious acute brain damage will cause changes to the gait, right? And when, normally stable people begin to seem like their balance is off and their gait changes, gait being the term for the natural walking of a person, right? The way they walk or run in a generally straight line in a generally normal manner. So when there's a sudden change after a brain injury to the gait, it is a tremendous red flag, right? And so that's what this ref is screening for, because often fighters can get up, right? They may not even be fully cognizant of what they're doing, but they're still able to form an intent. And so you can sort of use those changes to gait to infer that there may be serious brain damage. Now, we know, of course, in the post-fight stuff that Ben Askren was screened. Of course, he had his MRI. He was clear. It was not that serious. But the ref has to protect that fighter. That's his only priority, right? So seeing that altered gait was a bad sign, and that's why the ref waved it off. So I'm not seeing. Yeah, you see, Askren still looks like he's kind of a mess. Okay. All right, guys. So my final thoughts on this are this doesn't look like a fix to me. I want it to be a fix, right? I want to see the experienced competitor beat the obnoxious YouTuber, despite the fact that I'm sort of both. I'm an MMA fighter, I was a wrestler, and of course I'm now a YouTuber. Never achieved Ben Askren's level of success or Jake Paul's level of success in any of them. But I will say this. There's nothing in there that says that fight was a fix. Ben Askren's striking, Ben Askren just didn't respect Jake Paul. If Ben Askren could have just used the fundamentals of boxing, defense, hands up, always back in, he'd have ground Jake Paul out, right? Jake Paul would have thrown a lot of hard strikes, right? Askren would have checked him with his counters, and most of Jake Paul's strikes would have worn himself out, hitting Ben Askren in the arms. But Askren didn't do that. He decided to keep his hands out, his hands low, right? And Jake Paul, again, Jake Paul didn't knock him out with some beautiful Floyd Mayweather combo. Wasn't some slick defense where he slipped a punch and countered him. He hit him out with the thing that you learned probably on day 3 of boxing classes, which is a 1-2. Bring him back to your chin every time. But it goes to show you that if someone doesn't respect, if someone either doesn't know good technique or chooses not to use good technique's going to beat the brakes off them. So anyway, guys, that's all I had. Just wanted to do a quick one, a little bit different from my usual channel. But if you liked it, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I will see you guys later.